I was shocked at how deep and how well a lot of these archetypes are followed throughout this whole game, and each of the characters. And we can kind of have our different opinions about certain aspects, but for the most part it all fits really well, and it's beautiful. Like the way it all comes together, it would sound like we've been telling this same story for 10,000 years. At some point humanity gets sick of it. No. I don't know why, but no, people never get sick of hearing this story over and over, even in the story, to hear this story again in micro doses for all the characters in it going through the same story themselves. And it all kind of like balloons out into basically what we have here, which is a story that is ever relevant. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the State of the Arc podcast. My name is Kaysen, and this is a special friend of ours, mine and Mike's. His name's Gavin from a channel called Overleveled Games.
Yeah, my name is Gavin. Like you said, Overleveled Games. I've actually had both Kaysen and Mike on my channel to do some brief interviews with them, get to know them a little bit more. What I primarily cover on my channel is video games. I kind of started off as a podcast, news, and review sort of channel, just talking about what's going on in the world of video games. Later transitioned to talking specifically about Kingdom Hearts 1, kind of doing a kind of a book club discussion with the first Kingdom Hearts game, similar to what Mike and Kaysen do with many of the video games that they talk about on this channel. And then I kind of moved over into just doing my own thing, did rankings, reviews. Now I kind of like to just talk about whatever I want when it comes to video games. I've got a big family and I own my own business here in Austin, Texas. So really making YouTube videos is just a bit of a hobby for me. I love talking about video games, but I more importantly love listening to the Resonant Arc podcast, the State of the Arc podcast. That is my
way more importantly, absolutely.
Way more.
You got that right.
That's my favorite thing.
So
but yeah,
speaking
Patreon
of,
member.
Very nice. Yes, and active in the Discord as well. Yeah. Gavin, Final Fantasy IX is what we're talking about today again, but we're approaching this in a whole different way. One of the things that Gavin and I have talked about in the past, and over on his channel in particular, is the hero's journey and how important it is, and that framing kind of for video games and movies and all of this stuff, for all the stories that we read, but not just the oversimplified version. The hero's journey, like every game applies. You're playing a hero and he has a journey, right? There you go. Cut and dry. Right. But can you explain, Gavin, what exactly is the hero's journey and why is it applicable?
This is something that is innate. Like this is a primitive thing that is in all of us. Every single day we are living basically a hero's journey. From the moment that we wake up to the moment we put our head down, there is a hero's journey happening. This commonly, like you had mentioned, revolves around a hero. We'll go kind of step by step in this video on what the steps of the hero's journey are, but essentially it follows a hero who has an opportunity to explore the world. Oftentimes he rejects that call to go out and do it, but once he is pushed to leave the ordinary world and go out into the extraordinary world, he faces many trials, he goes and he has a certain kind of battle, and in the end, he eventually is, in a sense, he has put to death the old self that started the journey and has kind of resurrected as a new creation, in a sense, and has returned home, as Joseph Campbell likes to put it, with the elixir. He has something tangible. Maybe it's something ideological. It's something just for himself or something for the community, but something has changed. And that is kind of this idea of the hero's journey. It's a very, very common storytelling trope that you can kind of set into a blueprint, similar to how Christopher Vogler did, especially with the 90s era of Disney films like Aladdin, The Lion King, The Little Mermaid, movies like that. They follow stuff like the hero's journey to a T, especially George Lucas when it came to the Star Wars prequel trilogies. That guy was all about the mythology and all of the storytelling aspects brought up by Joseph Campbell. If you watch movies like The Matrix, I mean, these guys, Kaysen and Mike, they're always talking about these video games, and at the core of all of them lies the hero's journey. And in many cases, and like we'll discuss today, it's not always this one-size-fits-all formula. Oftentimes, it is going to look a little bit differently. Sometimes it's a complete subversion of the hero's journey, but it is that flip side of it. You're always seeing the hero's journey displayed in one way or another. So
That's actually a really important point, that even when somebody's trying to subvert the hero's journey, what they're doing is doing something in direct reference to the hero's journey. Even a subversion often still props up the original thing.
You're still showing and highlighting the hero's journey. You're just saying, I'm going to do something different.
Yes, exactly. But it's all within reference to that. One of the cool things about the hero's journey in general is that it can be your journey, anybody, whoever's watching, if you want it to be. Some of this is framing, right? These things are just like, things are constantly happening to you in your life. And there are all sorts of people who come and go, and were they an ally, or were they maybe a bit of an adversary to your whatever your goal is, right? A lot of this could be more or less self-determined. But this is a way of looking at things that can apply to your life in some pretty important ways. And to kind of go along with that, we had the hero's journey. Obviously, you've got Zidane in Final Fantasy IX. By the way, probably Final Fantasy IX spoilers throughout the episode. So,
this entire thing is going to be chock full of spoilers.
Maybe one or two.
Maybe go play Final Fantasy IX, or better yet, listen to Mike and Kaysen's analysis of Final Fantasy IX.
You don't even have to play the game.
Come back to this
but one of the things that Gavin brought up was that the hero's journey actually applies to not just Zidane, that there are other characters that this applies to as well. And so we're going to get into this in a way that we haven't really done on this channel before, like really step for step following the hero's journey. And we talked about this a little bit because Joseph Campbell, dope, awesome, OG, great, love the guy. The version of the hero's journey we're going to be using is Christopher Vogler's. Like Gavin mentioned before, he wrote a book called The Writer's Journey, and he was what was he? He was like an advisor or what's the word?
Christopher Vogler was basically a student of Joseph Campbell.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
And the primary
consultant
role that he served was he was a script outliner for Disney. He worked in Hollywood and worked on tons of movies. I mentioned movies like The Lion King. All of Disney during that time, the reason why, I really believe this is the reason why people look so fondly back at that quote-unquote golden era of Disney
when he was the 90s.
He was there, and they literally used the blueprint of Joseph Campbell's hero's journey as the complete outline for all of their movies. You know
what's wild? I watch movies with my kids often, and one of the movies my kids love that came out relatively recently is the movie Moana. And I looked at the ending credits of that movie because I started having some inklings as I watched it. I was like, this is kind of The Lion King. Like, this feels like basically The Lion King except girls. And this is the feminine version of The Lion King. And sure enough, the directors, it's the same directors who directed The Lion King, and so many of the same beats, but all of it is, like we mentioned before, maybe the inversion. A lot of it is, instead of doing it the way The Lion King did it, like instead of looking up into the sky where Simba sees his father, Moana looks down into the water and sees her grandmother. And but it's the same thing that's happening here. It's just the symbolism gets kind of flipped because it's a feminine, it's more of a female-centered story. But what's interesting though is that Moana is like the most popular movie Disney's made in like a very long time. I don't know about their Star Wars, like their Marvel stuff or whatever. I'm talking about their Disney animation, like all the stuff that they've made. I guess Frozen was pretty big too. But Moana is like off the charts, right? It's like one of their best, most streamed movies on Disney Plus. And it follows Vogler, like to a T. It is The Lion King. So
I actually did not like Moana the first time that I watched it, probably because I watched it when it was brand new. But I think it was after I started listening to your podcast and I started jumping into the Hero with 1,000 Faces and all that.
There you go.
I watched it again, and then my frame of mind was completely flipped, and now it's like one of my favorite ones. Dude,
you know what's funny?
It's really good.
Moana is incredibly symbolically rich. And I would love to talk more about it. I really would. Yeah. But people aren't here to listen to us talk about Moana.
Right.
They're here to listen to us talk about Final Fantasy IX. I know I'm the one that brought it up. But still, Vogler is a big deal because, and what makes his book so approachable, and whenever I talk about, because people often ask, hey, I'm having a hard time reading Jung. What should I read first before I jump into it? Read Vogler. You read Vogler first, Christopher Vogler, The Writer's Journey. And he talks about movies, so you're familiar with all the source material. It's Star Wars. It's Pulp Fiction. It's Lion King. It's stuff that you've seen before, Jurassic Park. And those are the references he's using. Whereas Joseph Campbell,
The Matrix,
it's like
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas, for Joseph Campbell, it's like Egyptian mythology, Persian mythology, Indian mythology, Native American mythology. Like, who's Quetzalcoatl? It's like people. It's harder to approach that without the familiarity of the subject material. So Vogler's the first one. Then read Campbell. Then read Eric Neumann, and all the way down to Jung from there. But this is the beginning, and it's for good reason. He distills Campbell and Jung in such a brilliant way. But let's jump into this. Do you want to start with the archetypes or the journey itself?
There's a handful of archetypes that we talked about. Like Kaysen mentioned, we are going to talk about basically the entire plot of Final Fantasy IX, but not just the singular hero of Zidane. That's who you're playing as, right?
Yeah.
So oftentimes in a video game, the main character is the one who you are playing as.
Yeah.
But from a storytelling perspective here, Zidane is not our only main character. And what I love so much about Final Fantasy is they do this very well in basically all of their games. You can basically pick anyone from the main cast, especially, particularly the ones who you play as, they're in your party. Yeah. You can pick up any one of them and they all have a hero's journey. Yeah. But we kind of discussed that we're going to focus on 4 of what I believe to be the primary main characters here. And that would be Zidane, Garnet, Steiner, and Vivi. And like you had mentioned, the archetypes. I know you asked me to do that. Would you like to talk about the archetypes of these characters?
I would. So this is kind of like the tarot cards. I often will use tarot cards as an example of what exactly these archetypes are getting at. I've got them listed here in Vogler's book. You have the hero, the mentor. So the hero is just... It's Harry Potter. It's Frodo Baggins. It's Zidane. It's whoever you're playing as. What's interesting about Zidane, though, is he does not start off as the hero archetype. Yes. He actually starts off as the trickster archetype, which is, it's always really fun when a game kind of throws you into a different a role where the character kind of needs to learn to become the hero. They aren't just the hero from the get-go. It's not like a Link in The Legend of Zelda, right? It's like where he's ready to be the hero from the first moment you pick up the controller. Zidane is not that, but he does become the hero through playing the game. So we have the hero archetype, then you have the mentor, the wise old man or woman. For this game, I think this would be along the lines of something like Professor Tot.
Yes.
But it could be other characters throughout. I mean, other characters will act as mentor figures to the hero or to the rest of the party. But I think Professor Tot is the one that consistently fills that role. I believe... Yeah.
Or sorry, yeah, I was just going to say, I believe it's important too that because it's 4 different heroes that we're talking about, they all kind of in their own way have their own mentor figure. Like we will talk about more of this stuff kind of as we get through the hero's journey as, proper. But I think it could be totally fine to say that for Garnet, definitely Professor Tot would be like her mentor figure whenever she was younger. While for Vivi, in his origin story, we have his grandfather, who's kind of his mentor figure. And then for all of them...
And then Quina has Quan. Yeah.
Quina has Quan, and then for all of them, Zidane is kind of, because he's the trickster, his entire character is very loosey-goosey, like, hey, guys, like, live your life. Don't take it, like, so seriously. That's kind of his whole, like, mantra.
That's a good pickup. I like that.
Everybody learns from Zidane. So he's not only just the trickster, but he's also the mentor for a lot of these characters.
I wonder how many of these he actually fits. It's such a versatile character. Because he could probably be the shapeshifter, and he could be like many of these. But the next one that we have here is the Threshold Guardian. Video games, okay, so in a book, you'll have a Threshold Guardian that is a little more concrete and makes a little more sense. In a video game, every boss you fight is the guardian of some kind of threshold. But in terms of the story, I would actually probably put Beatrix as the Threshold Guardian, at least relative to Zidane. She, of course, once again, she's going through her own journey I don't know if we're going to touch on Beatrix necessarily, but she's going through her own journey. But the way that we meet her is typically through as a guardian, and something along the lines of like the Sphinx, or something that's kind of like a riddle, something that we're having to figure out. It's an antagonist of sorts, but it's not like the evil bad guy. It's like somebody who's going through their own stuff, but is there doing their job, and her job is to prevent people. She guards access to the princess. That's like her job. That is the Threshold Guardian. Also, this is also really good to note. I never cared personally that Beatrix, the greatest warrior in the kingdom, is a woman. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I'm like, look, dudes, you expect me to buy this, that this woman is like the best fighter? I never felt that. Oh, yeah, I never felt that way for FF9, though. And it wasn't until I was looking through this and kind of thinking about it that I was like, you know what? Because I didn't know who was the Threshold Guardian otherwise. I'm like, every boss, I don't know. But Beatrix, the fact that a female is the guardian of the Threshold works really well. And I almost wonder if that's maybe a reason why that was so palatable for me and that I never really even thought twice about it, that Beatrix is the greatest fighter in the kingdom. I just kind of accepted it as is because her role is so clearly to be the guardian of the Threshold and to guard access to the princess. And it makes perfect sense that she'd be a woman. It's like it was never really a concern for me. But sometimes it is. And I always have to ask myself, why do I not buy it in these situations, but I do in this one? And I think this is part of the reason why.
I think also that's a great example of what we are talking about when we say, hey, sometimes a story will tell us the hero's journey by acknowledging it and very clearly flipping it on its complete opposite.
Yes, that's exactly
this
correct.
is an example of, Beatrix is the Threshold Guardian. Yeah. Now, in your mind, you're thinking well, hero's journey, it's the complete opposite. Oh, okay, now I see what they're doing. It's the complete opposite. That is it in its own right.
Yep, a subversion of a trope is paying reverence, paying homage to the trope. That's just how it is. The next one I need your help for this one, the Herald. And the Herald would be something along the lines of somebody who like John the Baptist for Jesus, right? Somebody who comes before the other person and kind of paves the way or kind of announces the coming of the next person. I don't know that I quite figured this one out completely, but I would maybe tentatively have to put Garnet in that position of being the Herald because she initiates her own kidnapping. She is the herald of the plot point that puts the whole story in motion. It's weird that she did that herself, though. So I don't know if you had a better idea for that one.
I would say that is a good one. I could also maybe point to Baku, who is the leader of the Tantalus
actually,
theater
that's good.
Troupe. He is the one who is inciting, hey, this is what we're going to do. Obviously, the twist of that whole situation is, hey, she actually wants that to happen. So they're kind of going hand in hand.
Baku. I like Baku being the herald. That's actually really good because he's the one that gets the group together. I like that, actually. The more I think about it, the more I like it. And he always shows up at the weirdest times, unannounced, just all over the place. And he just laughs, but he's always there for a reason. And he always shows up there before we then follow and show up later. I don't know. There's something fun about that. I like that. The next one
I think also,
good.
I was just saying, you could probably also say that Zidane is kind of constantly acting as a herald in some way for just other members of the cast. And that kind of goes hand in hand with his mentor type of archetype as well.
Sure,
I think that you could say, for Garnet, he literally pushes her into being in the real world. He's we're actually going to name we're going to rename you. You're no longer Garnet now, you're Dagger.
And such not not an abstract name, like a very solid concrete object name, right?
Yes. Exactly.
It really grounds her and pulls her down to earth that way, I think.
Yeah.
That's really fun. Then the next one is the Shapeshifter. So we have the hero, the mentor, the Threshold Guardian, the Herald, and then the Shapeshifter. You could make arguments for a couple, possibly Amarant or Eiko, but I think it's pretty clear that the shapeshifter of this story is Kuja. He's the one who is really difficult to pin down, and especially early on, and he's the kind of person who, were things different in different circumstances, would have actually been a completely different person, possibly. At least that's what Zidane believes. And he goes between worlds, right? He's somebody who Zidane learns to kind of do something like that. But Kuja is what I would consider to be the shapeshifter of the game.
I'd say so. Yeah, that's good.
Okay, and then the last one, well, actually, there's a couple more. The Shadow. The next one is the Shadow. Anyone who's read or heard anything about Carl Jung knows about this one. The Shadow is applicable in 1,000 different ways, and each character it's going to be a different one, right?
It's all over the place.
Yes.
It almost feels like this game is about the Shadow.
Yes, and I think it is, because you have the two worlds. It's almost like Terra is the Shadow world for Gaia, right?
Yeah.
Or vice versa, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, everyone has a yin and yang.
Yes, exactly. But because Zidane grew up on Gaia and doesn't have access to his memories from beforehand, to him, the hidden world, the world of the shadow, the suppressed subconscious world, is the world of Terra. So that's why I would say Terra would be more the shadow in that regard. And to that end, Garland and probably even Kuja himself, because Kuja is kind of the mirror of Zidane. Kuja is what Zidane could be, were he to
he's
give
the
in
potential.
So Kuja, not just being the shapeshifter, he's a direct shadow to Zidane. And but also Garland being a shadow, maybe more to Dagger, or is a like the shadow figure that just kind of represents Terra as a whole.
Garland could just be the shadow of the group dynamic as a whole. Like if the group is an entity, Garland is the entity that is opposed to the group.
There you go. I like it. Yeah. Then after the shadow, we have Ally. I mean, it's a 4-character...
It's an RPG.
RPG, yeah. Yeah, you have tons of allies. This is the funny thing, because Ally, it's like, hey, anything goes. They're all, any character, well, any non-antagonist character is your ally. Sure. That's just how this works. There's also a point in the writer's journey and in Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey where you get to one part of the journey that like 80% of the game takes place in that one part. And for the story, it's tests, allies, enemies. That's almost the whole game.
Like 30 hours of a 40-hour long RPG. Yeah,
I love it. So you'll get these specific moments and things, but then the majority of the game is actually spent only on one specific part. For the archetypes of the characters, it's allies. You know, I put here Vivi because he kind of embodies what the whole game's about, but in this fun sidekick kind of way. So he's the ally. And then the last archetype, we've got Hero, Mentor, Threshold Guardian, Herald, Shapeshifter, Shadow, Ally, Trickster, or Trickster. That's the last one. And then the Trickster starts out as Zidane.
Yep.
That's his whole thing. He's a trickster, and even in the way that he treats Dagger a little bit, kind of like trying to steal a kiss here and there, or he's subtle. He's very subtle, and he's crafty, and not always towards a good end, you could say. He's sometimes really kind of serving his own purposes. He doesn't have a higher purpose at the moment. But as he slowly learns that and acquires that higher purpose, I think Quina then becomes the new trickster for the rest of the game. That's good.
Yeah. No, that's good. I agree with that.
Okay, perfect. All right, so those are the character archetypes, and that's just an overview in general. But like we mentioned, it's all relative. So when you first play the game, this is what it's going to be. But as you play the game again, or as you dive into specific characters, a whole different like story and a whole different set of archetypes is going to show up. Do you want to take care of the journey now and talk about how it applies to everybody?
Yeah, so real quick, I will just go ahead and just name off what all of the steps of the hero's journey are. And like Kason had mentioned, Joseph Campbell has 17 steps of the journey, but Christopher Vogler, like we've discussed, Christopher Vogler is a really, really fantastic introduction to getting into the mind frame of this type of storytelling. Yeah. He simplifies it down to 12 steps, but overall is still encompassing all of the ideas that Joseph Campbell has. So first we have the ordinary world. The hero, he's in his normal everyday life. He's shown there. It establishes a baseline for what he knows. We have the call to adventure. Here I have written a problem, a challenge, or an incident arises. It shakes up the ordinary world. Then we have the refusal of the call. The hero is hesitant. Yeah, this is a big one, and almost this is kind of why I really, really love the first act. I want to call all of this up until we get to like crossing the first threshold, like the first act of like an RPG. And it's always my favorite part of a movie, a storytelling. We kind of have an entire hero's journey kind of simplified very shortly right here. He goes through an entire like change of heart, and he eventually decides to go on this journey. But he has this refusal at first. And then after he meets with the mentor, which is the next step, meeting with the mentor, he then goes and he crosses that first threshold. The mentor, like I said, this is a figure who provides training, equipment, or confidence to the hero, and crossing that first threshold is whenever the hero totally commits to going on the adventure, and this is where he exits the ordinary world and he enters the special world or the extraordinary world, and he leaves behind what he knows, and he's all on his own now. Sometimes he's got people with him, but this is totally new territory. We're on the adventure. That's Act 1, and then we have 30 hours of gameplay called Test Allies and Enemies.
Everything else, etc., etc.
Yeah, this is test allies and enemies. The hero learns the rules of this new world. He faces trials and he identifies friends and foes. The next step on the journey is the approach to the inmost cave. This is where the hero prepares for the central, most dangerous challenge in the special world. And next, we have the ordeal, which is the central crisis where the hero faces death or their greatest fear, resulting in the death and rebirth moment. As we'll talk about later on, we have something like the "You're Not Alone" moment with Zidane. That's a good visual for that. Then we have the reward, the seizing of the sword. The hero survives the ordeal and takes possession of the treasure, which could be something tangible. It could be an actual item that we were after the entire time, or it could be something deeper within. The reward totally varies. And next we have the road back. The hero begins the return journey back home to the ordinary world. And oftentimes he's chased by the remnants of the enemy. The journey's not totally over yet. Whenever we're heading back home, we have the resurrection. This is the final highest stakes test of the threshold of home, where the hero is purified by a last sacrifice. And that totally looks different. Once we kind of get here to these last stages of the hero's journey, whatever the story is, they're all kind of replicated or they happen in a different way. It's not always just so cut and dry. This is exactly what this step of the journey looks like. Sometimes it's a lot more metaphorical. Sometimes it's very literal. But then finally, we have the return with the elixir. We're back home. The hero brings the treasure, the elixir back, whatever that reward was. And we're using it to improve the ordinary world. That's kind of just a long-winded explanation of what these 12 steps are and kind of what we're going to walk through throughout the entirety of Final Fantasy IX.
Okay, dope. All right. Well, I want to just kind of dive into this. I'm especially excited to talk about the other characters and the way that this all kind of applies to them.
Yes.
But first we have the ordinary world, Zidane the Trickster. He's Tantalus. He's just kind of an actor in a play. You know, in order to tell a good story, you have to first lay a groundwork for what is considered normal in your world. Before you start breaking rules, you have to establish some rules. The first hour or so of Final Fantasy IX does that so brilliantly. Not just with the initial FMV, kind of that movie that plays where you see flying ships. Okay, this is a world with flying ships. This is a world where people look a little different. You might have some monkey people. You know? You might have some rat people. You might have different kinds of people. Like a hippo. There's like a hippo kid or something like that.
They're like They're kind of look. I think y'all talked about it. It kind of reminds me of like a Jim Henson world. It's very like labyrinthian.
Dark Crystal.
Like they're like Muppets. Yeah, Dark Crystal. It's very.
That's right. Because the design, they were supposed to look not. It wasn't supposed to be like 1-to-1 like realistic 3D renders. They were supposed to kind of look a little bit maybe more animatronic or puppet style. So you've got just, hey, we're just doing a normal thing in a normal place, and this is how it works, right? Now, of course, they clue you in pretty early on. Hey, we're gonna kidnap the princess. Oh, it's gonna be great. But you're really just learning how the world works up until this point. And that's the introduction to the ordinary world. But each character has a different one, and you see a lot of these in like what do they call them? The action time events, not the action. Is it action time events?
Yeah, I think that's what they call them.
Where all of a sudden you get to play as Vivi for a little bit, and
active time.
Active time. That's it. What is his ordinary world like? Well, he doesn't know. He's just kind of wandering around, and that's kind of more or less his world. He just kind of wanders around, and people, use him for different things, or talk to him or not, and he just kind of goes with the flow. So they're establishing each different character has this kind of normal that I think they're associated with. And I also wanted to bring up those cards that play at the beginning. Actually, I should probably wait for this a little bit. The refusal of the call. I think the cards that show their name in like one word, like Zidane, virtue, Vivi, sorrow. I believe that one word is an explanation for the refusal of the call or something like that. Not always for each one, but some like in the case of Freya. Right, that her refusal of the call is despair. Right, it's what's keeping her back. Amaranth is arrogant, that keeps him back. Eiko, with her solitude, it's holding her back. So each character kind of goes through that. But yeah, we've got the ordinary world. And what are the 4 characters that we're looking at here today?
Yeah, we've got Zidane, we have Garnet, Steiner, and Vivi. Like you mentioned with Zidane, he's a part of Tantalus. He's kind of got this worldview that's kind of built on freedom, impulsiveness.
Yeah, I do what I want.
Yeah. He kind of does what he wants. He avoids a lot of heavy thinking, especially anything that's like about identity or purpose, which is a huge theme throughout this. Many of his relationships are very casual, kind of surface level.
Yep.
But we see through his interactions with the people on the troop, like what's her name, Ruby, like the girl,
Ruby,
who
she gets left behind.
Like there's all these different people who he interacts with, and so you can see that he has a very casual relationship with these people, but he also cares kind of deeply about them.
That's true.
For Garnet's ordinary world is the complete opposite. It's like it is the flip side of what Zidane's is. She kind of longs to have a life like Zidane's, where there's freedom and she can feel like she can do whatever she wants, but she is completely isolated. She has a very rigid, structured, and suffocating, controlled lifestyle inside of Alexandria's castle as the princess of this area. Like, she is completely raised to be a symbol and not a person.
Right. Yeah, that's totally. That's
later we complete, like, we have this complete idea of what her origins actually are, but like we're talking about, we're introduced to the story. This is the ordinary world for her. She is a bird trapped in a cage. That is her ordinary world, and Zidane is off flying around in an airship. That is literally like the complete opposite. Like, she wishes that were her, right? Next we have Steiner. Steiner, he has this completely normal life of a guard. He is completely in the world that we see in front of us. He was born in it. He was raised in it. He is a knight of Pluto, a knight of Alexandria. He's defined by absolute structure. He's defined by loyalty to the crown. He's the captain of the Knights of Pluto. He operates under a incredibly strict code, which is basically that orders equal truth.
Yes.
He measures right and wrong based on authority and not necessarily morality. And he immediately, once we are out of this and he meets Zidane, he completely sees Zidane as the outsider, which equals a threat to order. And then, like you had mentioned, even
and he's
with
right.
Vivi,
He's not wrong.
Yeah, he is right.
He's right, but order isn't everything.
Exactly. So Vivi, like you had mentioned, we initially just kind of see him meandering around. He has a little ticket in his hand. We don't really know what's going on. And that is why he is such a good representation of the person playing the video game. He's the human character. Even whenever we get into his origins still kind of replicate that of where we see him at the very beginning of the game.
You're right.
It's quiet. He's isolated, full of confusion. He lives in near solitude with what we call his grandfather figure, Quan. He's got no understanding of what he is, where he's from. He feels completely different from everyone around him. And we very clearly see that he struggles with fear of the unknown. And that's kind of the baseline ordinary world that we see for all of these main characters.
Okay, that's perfect. I like the way you bring up Vivi, because he's just kind of thrown. You're right. Even when you find out more about him, it doesn't change much. He just, as far as he remembers, he just woke up one day and this is the world. This is how it is. And that mirrors Heidegger, Martin Heidegger's idea of thrownness, where the world just is how it is. You're just presented with this world that, it makes sense to you because you're raised in it. But when you kind of take a step back, sort of like Mike brings up often the analogy of, or what's his name? Titus from Final Fantasy X. When you are an outsider who has a previous experience and then you're thrown into a world with all of your previous memories, you're like, what's going on here? Why do you guys do things so weird, Whereas for Vivi, this is all he knows, and it's just like us, and not just us in life, but also us in the game. We just plugged a game into the console and press start, right? We have no idea what we're about to experience. We are thrown into the world the same way that Vivi is. Zidane, all these other characters have this kind of history, like we feel like we're catching them in the middle of a story. But for Vivi, you may as well be right at the beginning of his story. I mean, he's got some backstory with, was it Quan or Quail going back? Quan. Yeah, but really, he's been doing basically this his whole life, just kind of wandering around aimlessly and just kind of in awe at the world. And that's how we are when we first turn on the game. I love that. I love that connection there. And then from the ordinary world comes the call to adventure.
Right.
So what is the call here for each of our characters?
Yeah, I would say that for Zidane, his initial call to adventure is right at the very beginning, like I had mentioned with Baku, who we see as our herald. He calls our troop to go out and kidnap the princess. Yes, in some way, we see that as just a continuation of his ordinary world, right? This is something that he does on a regular basis. Yeah. But it is a new adventure. I don't know how many other princesses they've kidnapped in the past, but you can maybe
Actually,
surmise...
that's a good question.
You can maybe surmise that this is hopefully a new adventure.
My idea for the call to adventure is a little bit, I put it just a little bit further in the future, where it would be after the crash. The call is something that, kind of like you mentioned, kind of how the foil for Zidane is Steiner, and the foil for Steiner is Zidane. They are each other's opposite. Zidane gets authority from being told what to do by the queen or the king or the princess or whoever it is. Whereas Zidane, he feels naturally what he is called to do. And so he was told by Baku to kidnap the princess. Oh, she's kind of cute. I like her anyways. I'll do it. Fine. But it was when she fell off the ship and where everybody was like, we can't leave the ship because it's dangerous to go outside. Zidane, when he kind of breaks the rules. See, this could also be the refusal of the call. There's something like that happening here as well. But the call to adventure for him is less kidnapping the princess, because that's more his normal line of work. And it's more after the princess is kidnapped and they're in the forest, the call to then go out and find her and save her, which you don't have to do. This is not what he is expected to do. It is something he's feeling. So anyways, I feel like the actual adventure for him is less being part of this troop, and more leaving the troop to go out and feel his own calling in life.
Yeah. Well, so I like that you bring that up. The reason why I say that the start of his call begins right here in the opening moments of the game after you have the boss battle with Baku. You have the whole meeting with everyone. You decided, hey, here is the adventure. Here's what we're going to do. We are called to the adventure, and I feel like Zidane in this moment doesn't actually refuse the call in the traditional sense. This is what I mean by, like, the hero's journey is not this one-size-fits-all approach to everything. I feel like Zidane's, and we'll get more into everyone's refusal of the call and, of course, everyone's actual call to the adventure in a little bit. But I feel like by having Zidane's call to adventure be, hey, let's go kidnap Princess Garnet, I feel like his refusal of the call, and I feel like this fits perfectly with the themes of Zidane and what we are learning about identity, is the fact that Zidane's refusal to the call to adventure is the fact that he does not say no. Zidane never says no to this mission. He refuses the weight of the mission. I feel like that is kind of his refusal to the adventure.
I like that.
He doesn't take anything seriously.
You're right.
His refusal is this emotional refusal. He treats this entire kidnapping kind of like it's a game. He deflects all of serious conversation with humor and charm. He completely avoids thinking about consequences and long-term responsibility. And this is not something that we just see him do right here, but it is a constant refusal of the call to adventure.
You're right, actually. You're right.
You can maybe even say that
he refuses it all the way up until the end. He is constantly refusing this adventure that he is clearly being called to.
Yes. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say.
I like that.
I would say as far as the call to adventure for Garnet, like you mentioned, her call is self-initiated. She decides to escape Alexandria. She suspects that her mother is behind this war. She wants to seek answers beyond the castle. She chooses to trust strangers over her own kingdom. This is her call to adventure.
That's big.
She decided this. Yeah.
That's funny because she also... That's funny. I actually really like that because, once again, this is the similarities between Garnet and Zidane. It's almost like you can put people in the different camps of, like, you know, they have a direct connection with, you know, nature or fate or whatever you have, whatever you want to call it. And then you have the other side, which is they are told what to do and they have a direct line of authority to, like, a king or another person that tells them what to do. It's where do they get their authority to do anything in life, right?
Yes,
Steiner gets his authority to act at all from his masters, right? Even a lot of the people in Tantalus, it's like, if Baku tells you what to do, you go do it. They just listen to him, right? Zidane was the one who's like, I'm not listening to you today. I'm leaving. I don't care if you kick me out. I don't care. I'm gone. And that was a big loss for him. to leave that, but at the same time, he just blows with the wind. It's not that big a deal because his call is coming from somewhere else. I think he and Garnet would have some pretty big similarities in that regard, that she is just feeling the call from above. It's not coming, certainly not coming from the Queen. It's certainly not coming from Beatrix or any, it's coming from her heart. It's coming from her soul, and maybe just like a goal or an ideal or something higher, that like this can't be all that there is to life, something like that, right? So it's her soul connecting with the world's soul, and the world has a soul in this game. So I can say that.
Well, and I would say, too, that you can maybe even tie into later events of the story whenever we get flashbacks with her and Dr. Tot. Like, this is something that has been on her mind. She's always stayed curious, which is another great theme about this game, especially with Vivi, is to stay curious, ask questions.
Yeah, that's good.
She did that a lot whenever she was younger. And then one day, she just thought, I'm done. I'm leaving. I'm out of here. It was this more so like calling from above, like you say. I really like that.
Yeah, it's fun because I feel like several characters are going to have that. That's how their call came. It's in this unique way. Okay, that's very
so
good.
going into Steiner's call,
he is refusals all the way down too.
He is utterly rooted into duty and panic. Yeah. The princess has been kidnapped. He's got to retrieve her.
That's his call to adventure.
Yeah, it's just he's just immediately reactive to this mission. He sees Zidane and he sees Tantalus as criminals. There's no ambiguity in his mind what is right versus wrong. This is his call to adventure.
And he sees it as an adventure too. Like he's excited to go out and bring justice to the world, right? It's his calling, and he's like, finally, I get to leave the castle, but not because I want to. I have a job to do, and he takes it so seriously. I love it.
Yeah, completely rooted in duty. And Vivi's call, I would say, is maybe the most subtle and maybe even the most human. But especially given what we know about what his origins are, what he knew growing up with his mentor Quan, right? I feel like his call to adventure is he goes to watch a play in Alexandria.
That's right. That was a big deal for him. I think, isn't this his first time, like, leaving home and going out to explore the world?
There's no like grand quest to describe with what Vivi is doing as far as his call to adventure. He just wants to go see a play. He wants to experience something new. It's pure curiosity.
You've brought there's a third aspect here. You've got the direct line of authority telling you what to do. You've got, the ethereal, powers of like greater heaven, like, telling your heart to go do more. But then you also have just the pure coincidence, like the pure like fate, like luck kind of thing. It's just like fortune from old Boethius. I read Boethius' Consolation of Philosophy. Such a good book. But in it, he talks a lot about the wheel of fortune and how it just kind of, life just does what it does. And sometimes that in and of itself can be a call, like whatever cards you're dealt in life. This random ticket falls down, and I'm going to go have the adventure of my life now. Completely. Yeah, that's so funny.
Very good.
Okay, very good stuff.
Let's move into the refusal. Yeah, refusal of the call. Like we talked about, what I believe to be the main refusal of the call for Zidane is the emotional response that he has for most of the adventure. By the end, we see that Zidane is going to have this change of heart in his personality and how he is no longer going to take the life that he has for granted, and he's actually going to do something for other people because he really has the true empathy for them. But starting off, he doesn't have any of that, and he's called to go kidnap the queen, and he doesn't really care. Sure, let's do it. Sounds like fun. I feel like that's his refusal. I don't know if you brought up a different part that might be the refusal.
I like that. It's just in the Japanese, he is a little bit more pensive than he is in the English. He thinks a little more. He's a little more introspective. I mean, not a ton, but a little bit at the very least. Like he's kind of reciting poetry to himself as he's considering, this is early on kind of stuff. I feel like his refusal of the call, I like what you said. I like the way that you've brought it up so far. His refusal of the call is to actually seek out responsibility, where and that his nature up until that point, like what has been to cut off all responsibility, right? And he's been refusing a call his whole life. And then finally he takes on some responsibility, but as that responsibility keeps growing, he keeps refusing it each time. This one happens to him over and over. This one happens to Steiner over and over. Happens to Vivi a couple times. This one is foisted onto Garnet. The call is refused on her behalf. Even when she goes to Professor Sid, sorry, what's his name? Regent Sid.
Todd, Regent Sid,
Todd. I was getting the two confused. Regent Sid is he kind of puts her in a birdcage as well, the same way that Queen Braun had. But she's more reluctant to leave him because it's not so easy for her to justify leaving Sid the way it was for her to leave Queen Braun. But the call is being refused for her. And her refusal of the call is submitting to the authority that is telling her to refuse the call. And so it's not her choice. Like when the call comes, she seems to act. But in bowing to the authority above her, the call is being refused on her behalf. That's probably where I would put Garnet's there. And then for Zidane, I really like what you've brought up so far.
So what I would, and I like what you brought up so far. So
How about
that? But I would also just add on to Garnet that not only did she call this adventure to herself, but I feel like she almost like, it's that naivety. She wants something new, but she's never experienced something new. So her refusal of the call is, ooh, am I ready for this? Like she's constantly being like, I don't know if I can actually do this. So many times she has to have someone like Zidane be like, hey, no, you can do this. And this is a moment where she goes out on an adventure. She is ready for it, but immediately regrets it. Like she gets trapped immediately in the cage and she's like, what am I doing? Why did I do this? Like that's her mindset of all of it. So I feel like her entire...
So instead of refusal of the call for her, it's regret of the call.
Regret of the call.
A totally different thing. But when the call comes for her to be the queen, she says, I'm going to wait a little bit. I don't think I'm ready. Which, like, come on. I mean, I don't think you can do that as the queen. But she's young, and it's part of the story. Refusal of the call, you're right. It happens multiple points for her. And each call is a new adventure. You can look at it that way as well. So the call to be queen, that's a call.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Comes later.
And of course, as we see, later on, it's like she eventually accepts that, right? But
but then she throws Steiner, the crown off of her head. What in the world?
So Steiner, I feel like he's got definitely the most traditional refusal out of all of these guys. It's aimed towards Zidane. He refuses to accept Zidane as anything but a criminal. He completely rejects the idea that Garnet even wants to leave. He clings really tightly to the authority of the crown, right? He's actively saying stuff like, this situation is wrong because it doesn't fit my worldview. I feel like that is his refusal of the call.
I like that. Okay, so here's what's funny about that. So Garnet calls Steiner to an adventure when she reveals that she did this herself. But she is not the ultimate in the authority hierarchy. The queen is. So he needs to, how would you put this? He is refusing the call of the princess in favor of the call of the queen. He's using the queen as an excuse to refuse the call of the princess, who is telling him to lighten up and come have an adventure.
Yes. Good.
I could be. So that's so funny that even his call to adventure still came from the hierarchy. It's so funny.
Good stuff. And then I feel like Vivi's call is probably, again, the most human kind of, or sorry, not call. His refusal of the call is likely the most human. It's a fear-based refusal. He's very scared. He's overwhelmed. He's unsure. He doesn't understand what's happening. And his MO is kind of just to retreat or hide. That is kind of the initial character that we see in front of us with Vivi. And I feel like this is kind of his constant state of refusing the call, is just the fear-based.
I see that, especially when we get into Lindblom and he meets the Black Waltzes, right? And when the Black Waltzes show up, they're kind of his shadow. They are what he could become were situations slightly different. He would be one of them instead of what he is, right? And it's like, that's crazy. So that's the shadow lurking beneath the subconscious for him. But for him also, the refusal of the call is like he doesn't really know what's going on, so you can't blame him. But he's just going along with everything until he gets to the point where he finally makes his own decisions, which happens quite a bit later on. But in just going with the flow, he is refusing the call to his own adventure in favor of, well, I'll just accompany these guys on their adventure.
Yeah.
But that's a refusal of the call to his own adventure, which he first sees when he goes to the Black Mage Village. Well, not the Black Mage Village. Sorry, the factory. I can't remember what that's called, but the Black Mage Factory, right? And that's like, whoa, that was an adventure for him, and he's thinking about it. He doesn't know where to go to have that adventure, to discover where you come from. But that is a call to the adventure. That the refusal is, I'm just going to hang out with these guys for a bit longer.
Yeah.
That's him refusing.
He
his
doesn't
call.
know what's coming. He doesn't know what's coming before him, and he's just going to say, you know what, these guys clearly, they got what it takes. I don't. I'm just going to hang out with these guys because maybe they can protect me. Maybe it's a safety thing. I think it all just kind of, I like what you said. I like what you said about that.
Okay, we can move towards meeting with the mentor.
Let's do it. Meeting with the mentor.
And this is going to be different for each character.
Yes, that's the thing. Because like I had said in the beginning of this discussion, everyone's got their own mentor, and I like the idea of Zidane kind of being the kind of primary mentor that we see throughout the game, because I'll read what I have right here. Zidane functions as the mentor early on, but not in the traditional kind of like old wise guy. Like, he's not the wise old man.
Yeah. Right? Well, compared for an anime or for Japanese RPGs, he's kind of old.
Yes. Yeah, I guess so.
He's definitely Vivi's mentor.
Yes. So he teaches through. A lot of his teaching is done through his attitude, not necessarily through instruction. Like, it's his actions that are teaching people, and not necessarily the things that he says. Nobody really takes what he says like all too seriously. But they see his attitude, they see the way that he moves and the way that he makes decisions, and they're like, yeah, okay, I'm learning something from this guy. Yeah. He encourages Vivi, like you say, to be brave. He encourages Garnet to loosen up. He models a worldview that says care about people, but don't overthink your life.
I see.
I think that the main twist of his trope is that Zidane has no mentor per se at the very beginning. Who really is mentoring Zidane?
Because he won't have a mentor. He doesn't. Right. Like, you need to humble yourself slightly if you're gonna, be, if you're gonna have a mentor at all. Mm-hmm. But he does do that later on, especially when he's like, I don't have what I need, right? And that's where they're looking for Professor Tot. And
Yep. And then you can kind of like argue that towards the end, it almost seems like Garland kind of tries his hand, like, maybe I can be this guy's mentor, like he's really trying to get at him to become another Kuja, right?
You're right. Yeah, you're right.
And then I would say, Zidane's entire philosophy is completely self-built at this point. It's untested. It works in simple situations, but he's yet to actually face like any real world like trauma or existential truth, at least in the very beginning stages of the game.
Right.
But I think that's the most interesting thing, is that the fact that he is mentoring as a person who clearly has never had a mentor before.
Yeah, that's right. So he's kind of trying to model. One of my favorite scenes, I just think about this every now and then. I don't know why. Probably because I have sons and they're just funny. But when he's like up at night at Madain Sari with Vivi, and the way the whole scene ends is them like, hey, let's go partake in an old tradition of, boys camping out under the stars. And basically they're just going to go pee like out on the rock. Yeah. And it's hilarious because like, I did like Boy Scouts when I was younger, like that. Like, you got to go, and it's a bunch of boys, and it's like it's a funny sort of like weird kind of bonding type thing. That, but it's so Zidane to as a mentor bond with Vivi in that way, right? That's not like a Gandalf. That's not Merlin. That's not Dumbledore. That's not who we typically think of as being the mentor. But like, he's doing it in his own way. I like that.
Yeah. The mentor's job is to kind of like initiate the rite of passage.
There you go.
In a sense, and that is basically what he's doing with Vivi right there, which is
that's true.
Interesting.
That's true. It's true. He's initiating him into manhood in a certain way. Like, it's so funny. I love that. But also, Vivi did have a previous mentor who was Quail or Quan. I guess it would be Quan. Right?
Yeah. His grandpa figure.
And that was, that would have been something along the lines of this as well. What about Steiner though?
Yeah, I would say that Steiner's mentor, and I'm excited to talk about this because I think that Steiner's mentor is Beatrix.
Okay, he certainly is. He certainly looks up to her.
I would say she is this representation of strength, right?
Yeah, and competence. because his Knights of Pluto are super incompetent.
Yes.
And he kind of looks up to her as this vision of order and competence.
Yes. Unlike Steiner, Beatrix can adapt and she can question. That's kind of one of the big things that we see about Beatrix that is different from Steiner, right? She can question things.
That's true, actually, huh?
She forces him to confront the gap between what we would, I guess, call just like duty and truth, right? Steiner already completely believes that he understands loyalty, but her job as the mentor is to show to him that no, he does not. He does not actually understand loyalty, and she exists to invalidate his worldview. I think that's her role in his life.
I like that a lot. I actually think that's perfect. I don't think I have anything more to add to that. That's
I would
really
say
good.
With Garnet, I would say that her primary mentor, other than obviously Dr. Tot that we see in the very beginning, like I mentioned in the beginning, would be Zidane. I feel like Zidane and Vivi, Garnet and Vivi both use Zidane kind of as the mentor. For Garnet, it's all about learning to live and not just survive, right? Like he's like we said, he changes her name. Hey, you're kind of talking a little weird. What's with that accent that you're doing? Like he's really trying to initiate her into the real world. And
you know what's funny? Once again, though, how initiations are typically done is through a rite of passage. And often in a rite of passage, the receipt of a new name, like a secret, a new name, is part of the rite of passage, right? So you mentioned that with Vivi, that there's a whole rite of passage with him. But Zidane is also initiating Garnet into a new world in a similar kind of way. And that would totally put him as the mentor figure. Yeah.
She's almost like sort of soft core baptized into being this new creation, right?
Yes.
She is now going to walk in the newness of life that is called Dagger, right?
I like
there's
that.
There's something new there, but she is still learning, just like if you are undergoing some sort of transformation or sanctification in some way, you're going to be basically walking through fire and just learning how not to die, right? Like you are constantly just like learning how to get through it, right? And that's exactly what Zidane does with her. Like, hey, maybe try something new. We're changing your name,
right? Maybe
like put your hair down. Like, what are you doing? Totally just like get with the times, girl. Like, I'm gonna teach you. Just follow my lead. That's what he does, right? And then also, just real quick before we totally move on, another note that I had on Vivi and his mentorship. I feel like there's almost a sense in which, other than Zidane and Quan being Zidane's mentor, I feel like what Zidane really does very well is he basically, instead of necessarily teaching and giving him like this rite of passage, he kind of gives and allows Vivi I guess you could call it like a safe or just like the freedom to question. They just saw a bunch of different things, and Zidane is kind of just like not necessarily giving him answers, but he's like, yeah, let me hear what's on your mind, man. And he's just like allowing him to freely question. I feel like Vivi's mentorship kind of evolves past that as well. I feel like early on we see a lot of Zidane giving him courage, but later on I think that mentorship kind of is passed to Vivi himself, and he starts to mentor himself through these crazy experiences.
Well, I think that's probably true. And also, by the end of the game, Vivi becomes a mentor for the other black mages. You kind of see this torch being passed along, that nobody stays one archetype for their whole life, right? You wear, like for women, there's the whole, what they call it, maiden, mother, matriarch kind of thing. The progression of, as you go through life, you have different roles, right? And that from a different point of view, everybody can be every one of these at any point. Vivi himself becoming the mentor, I never thought of it that way. But at least by the end of the game, that is kind of what he's set up to do. In fact, all the characters are kind of set up to do that. All right, so we come now to crossing the first threshold. This is important that they say first threshold. The first of many thresholds. But the first one is important for symbolic and initiatory rite of passage reasons. Crossing the first threshold. This one it's kind of when you hit the point of no return. That's what makes it a threshold. You have a point where you just can't go back. And I think clearly, at least in the general story, when you're playing the game up to that point, it is when the forest turns to stone. And basically it's like, well, even if we want to, we can't go back, right? We cross the threshold and we are now at the point of no return. You can't just turn around and walk back through that gate.
Yeah, this is certainly what I would call like the finale to Act 1, right?
Yeah.
And I love all of these first 5 stages of the hero's journey. Like I mentioned earlier, I really feel like there is almost a sort of self-contained story just here alone within these steps. For Zidane, like you say, really the moment that we cross this threshold revolves around the crash at the evil forest, like you said. What started as maybe a very playful journey for Zidane has now ended up being very dangerous, very unpredictable, and it starts to become emotionally real. These people who he has encountered are now in trouble. He has an argument with some of the theater troupe people, like with Blank and stuff. And he decides to finally go out on this adventure, and he, the forest turns to stone, he loses his friend, and now we have a whole new thing that we have in front of us, right? Yeah. Zidane at this point can no longer just finish the job and move on. He becomes basically responsible for both Garnet and Vivi, which is huge for
That's
for
true.
his
Yeah,
character.
he takes on that extra responsibility. And Blank, I guess, right? Like all of a sudden he's just like, whoa, way more responsibility has been foisted upon me, but he feels it. It's real. And he's like, I'm not going to let my friend stay stoned forever. So it's like a whole bunch of people that he is now responsible for. And Baku, I think they got separated, right? So it's like, I got to go find these guys now. That moment is where like 5 different branches kind of like move in all different directions. But it's mostly just for Zidane, because I would actually put all 3 of the others, Vivi, Garnet, and Steiner, is the moment they set foot on the ship, on Tantalus ship. What was it called?
Yes, what do they call it? The Prima Vista.
Oh, the Prima Vista. That's right, the Prima Vista. Yeah. Because for Vivi, it was just kind of a very incidental thing for him to just kind of step over that threshold. He didn't even know what he was getting himself into. For Steiner and Garnet, they both kind of swing on the rafter, not the rafters, what would you call it? The streamers, kind of and make their way onto that boat. But that is their moment of no return. Zidane, I think Zidane's is uniquely the forest being his moment.
Yeah. And he is now no longer just a thief, but he has now kind of transferred his archetype over to protector.
That's right.
He is now, he's got to take care of the whole team.
Oh, that was his call. His call was to stop being a trickster, stop being a thief, and to become a protector. That was his call to adventure. He found something worth preserving, something he wanted to protect, instead of just a new next thing to go to, which had been his whole life up to that point. He finally found, and it called to his soul. This is the life for you, not being a trickster thief all the time.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and like you said, I think it's just the moment that they decide to leave Alexandria, or not even necessarily decide to leave. So, oftentimes with the crossing the first threshold, you're thrusted into it, right?
Yes.
And so like for Garnet, we have this moment, and she is now in a real world of danger. Up to this point, Garnet, she chose to leave, and now she realizes what that means. No guards, no control, no protection from reality. Like this is her threshold, right? For Steiner, I think it is just, he's now losing control. He has lost control of the plot. He's got to be forced to hang out with Zidane and the group. His entire goal was initially retrieve the princess and return home, but now he can't turn back. He even if he had the princess with her, how is he just going to go home? He's stuck relying on people that he completely distrusts. The situation does not even allow for his rules anymore. He completely loses all of his authority and control. His worldview is completely like it's starting to deteriorate from right here.
That's true.
It's becoming unstable.
And he needs to start relying on other people.
Yes,
which
he's forced into cooperation.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he sort of did with Baku and Tantalus, but they gave him so much autonomy to do whatever he wanted, and he could just leave whenever he wanted to. He just had to fight Baku, but he just isn't in a position where he can afford to leave these people anymore. He can't choose his own fate. It kills him. He hates it, but he can't choose his own fate anymore.
And I would say even for Vivi, it's not even necessarily the fact that he gets on the ship, because even that was kind of all accidental. I would say that his crossing the threshold was him fully deciding to, after all of the chaos that just happened, he decides that he is going to stick with these guys. He's scared still. Yeah. He doesn't understand what's happening. He keeps on, he keeps moving forward with them though. And I feel like that is the threshold that he crosses. Like that decision, he can continue to run and hide, but he is deciding to move forward with them.
Well, that's good. Yeah. So Vivi, because him stepping on the ship and going with them the first time was just what he'd been doing his whole life. He's just wandering and letting forces outside of his control carry him. But the moment he chooses to stay, right, and that's around the time where they get to him finding out, seeing all the dolls, I think they call them.
Yeah.
And that's where he's like, okay, I'm finally making a decision, and it's to step out of this whimsical world of letting the wind blow me around and into what do I actually want. I want to know what that is.
Yeah, instead of just hiding from the world, he has totally decided to engage with it. I think that's his main thing, right?
And that's a threshold. That's crazy. It may sound like nothing. That sounds super simple. For a child or for someone like Vivi, that's a big deal to finally decide to engage with the world instead of accept it passively or constantly fight it in a confront. It's like he's doing an acceptance of, like once again, it's almost like a responsibility thing that he feels a call. He wasn't really called to get on the ship earlier.
Right.
He just happened to be there because I think the guards were chasing him and Puck. But when he finally makes the decision himself, he's accepting some amount of responsibility.
Yeah.
For his own life.
Do you think that Rat Kid maybe is also a mentor?
Yes. I hate it though. Here's a fun anecdote, by the way, about Rat Kid. This is one I didn't mention in the podcast. So the kanji for child is also the zodiac sign, the Japanese zodiac for rat. It's almost the same thing. And if you look at the way that it kind of looks, you have kind of a point coming out and then a cross at the bottom. And it kind of looks like Rat Kid. And the fact that he's even called Rat Kid may hearken to actually the kanji for child in the first place. Kind of a little fun little play on words there for the Japanese. But
I wonder
of course,
if it was, I was just going to say, I wonder if the translator saw that and just thought, they just drew a picture of a rat? Okay, I guess I'm going to call this kid Rat Kid. It's Rat Kid, obviously.
It's a common kanji, but it has a zodiac meaning as well, which is rat. I just think that's interesting. And then the point nose, I just think it's fun. And the way he runs with his arms out too, it just looks like the kanji. I don't think that was an accident. But yeah, he's definitely a mentor. He's just not a good He's not a good mentor, but he fulfills that archetype. He sets Vivi on a journey. In some ways, he is kind of like the what was that archetype that I had just passed over? He is the guardian of the threshold in a way.
Yes.
He kind of like invites Vivi and then pushes him beyond that initial threshold.
Yeah.
But you're right that the crossing of the first threshold for Vivi is got to be more important than him just taking a step somewhere, having no idea what he was doing.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to tests, allies, and enemies. The longest part of the game. It's basically everything. All of the dungeons, all of the friends we meet along the way, and all of the boss battles that we fight, it all fits right here. This is basically all of Act 2. So if you look up to this point, up until the crossing of the first threshold, you have Act 1. This one chapter in the book and this one part is all of Act 2, and then we're going to get into Act 3 afterwards. But that being said, it's almost too broad. It applies too easily to every character. But the coming and going of allies and friends, the coming and going of enemies, and the many, many tests and puzzles that you have to kind of reason out and figure out on your way. And this is where JRPGs excel. This is where JRPGs have the majority of their meat. This is the majority of what you're going to be doing. So let's start with Zidane here.
Yeah, I feel like Zidane, up to this point, has kind of had, like, he's a good guy. He does some bad things with with a group that is, they're thieves, right?
Yeah.
But we kind of always see that he's good-natured at his heart. He kind of continues the entire beginning of the story with this sort of idea that life is simple and if you can just help people. Like, you can just help people.
You don't need a reason to help someone.
Just go help them.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. And then I feel like the shift that he has during this entire time where we're meeting people, we're seeing, at least Zidane is seeing, that the world is actually way more complicated than he initially thought. He was not taking things seriously enough, and he is thinking, wow, the world is complicated. And it's also incredibly unfair and sometimes really, really cruel, especially after he learns more about Vivi and Garnet, and he's starting to really bond with them. He deepens his connections with them, and he knows their stories, and he's like, wow, the world really is cruel. And this is where he kind of realizes that helping people just really is not as easy or simple and clean as I thought that it was. I feel like that's kind of the main shift that starts to happen in Zidane's character during this moment.
Okay, that's very good. I like that. And we're covering a lot of ground here. So it says tests, allies, and enemies. Well, the results of the tests are also the things that help make the characters and craft them into what they are. This whole part of the game, I mean, this includes like Bermesia and Clara and Lindblom and Madain Sari and the Black Mage Village. Yeah,
Queen Braun becomes like a real actual threat. The Black Waltzes are introduced, and it's huge for all of them.
And they all have deeper significance. But in terms of sticking to the Vogler's narrative here, I don't know how much how much time we need to spend on the podcast here. It may be a big part of the game, but it's not as big a part of the story itself. This is the grind. This is the grinding.
Yeah, this is the grinding. For Garnet, she starts to realize that her identity has been tied to something that is actually very flawed and broken. And this is where she really starts to question what she was raised to believe. Like she starts off the journey of just being like, whatever my life is, I want away from it. And then now that she's out and she's on the journey, she has this idea of like, what has my life been? Where is it going? What am I doing with my life, right? I feel like for Steiner, his shift really is this duty versus truth sort of conflict. It's been just constantly, he's been butting heads with this idea of truth over duty or duty over truth, right? Maybe they go hand in hand. Maybe they can't go hand in hand. What does he actually believe? How much nuance really is there between like truth and duty, right? That's kind of his whole shift during this portion of the game. And then this is really just where Vivi really starts to question, what am I? What's up with me? Where am I going? What have I been? What's my purpose? Do I really only have like a very short timer on my life? What does it mean to die? Like this is where all of the questions start.
Yeah, it's all this. Yeah. Yeah, this is the spot. They call it the rising action, but for Vivi, it's the mental spiral.
Yes,
and even for Zidane as well. It's like kind of a downward move, not so much
the existential crisis. Yeah,
exactly.
Totally.
Yeah, that's what this game's all about.
The approach to the inmost cave.
I think that Joseph Campbell puts this as something along the lines of in the belly of the beast, right?
Yes.
This is the place where, and this is Act 3, essentially. This is, if I could point some analogies, I think what he would say, I think he even says this in his book, that this is akin to like Luke Skywalker going into the cave to confront his father at Dagobah with like Yoda and stuff. This is the part where you have to like really come face to face with your demons, and that which leads directly into the next one. But we'll just get the approach to the inmost cave first. So for Zidane, I would assume that this would essentially be Terra. Because the inmost cave, right? Because you got a little bit of it before when they were kind of prisoners for Kuja, and it's like, what's going on here? This is crazy. But once you go to Terra, this is where the revelations all kind of happen. This is where you finally see what you're up against, what you're doing, what the other world could be like. You finally he gets initiated in a way into this other world, a foreign world, a world that is very strange. So, but in terms of the other characters, I'm wondering if you could enlighten me on that.
Yeah. For Garnet, I would say that she is basically at this point in her life where she's realizing that everything that has happened up to this point is because of her kingdom, her family, all this sort of stuff. Her fear, this is like just for all of the characters, their cracks are starting to show. Like if we're really going at it from like the more emotional side of where these characters are, their cracks are showing, and all of her fear has now become guilt. And she has this question of like, well, should I have just like gone back home? Right. Should I just be with my mother or, Queen Braun or whatever? Right. She is just having this realization that she just can't be passive anymore. Like she actually has to like take action and not just kind of like go along with how people are training her to like be. And that's what she's done her entire life, whether it's her mother or like her adoptive mother, Queen Braun, training her to be this idea of what Queen Braun wants her to be. Or maybe it's Zidane even kind of training her into being what Zidane perceives the real world to be. Like she needs to figure this out for herself. I would also, and I think a lot of that, this is where it really starts to kind of lead up to, in my opinion, whenever we get to, I don't know if this is necessarily the ordeal, but I really find that the haircutting scene is almost about to happen right here. This is like she's about to get to that point where she realizes I know who I am and I've decided who I'm going to be. But it all starts right here with this doubt, this emotional collapse of what the kingdom was that she was a part of.
You know
I don't
what?
know if you have any other thoughts on that.
I do, because you bring that up, and I think that's right. The approach to the inmost cave, this is interesting. This is like so for Zidane, it's outside. Like the inmost cave is somewhere else that he needs to go to. Even for Vivi and Steiner, it's a place that they need to go. Obviously, there's inner work that needs to be done as well. There's the whole microcosm, macrocosm thing happening. But in terms of Garnet, I would say her approach to the inmost cave is something that happens almost entirely internally, almost completely in herself. Mm-hmm. And that is a very feminine way of telling the same kind of story. And that the way that it applies for her is the inmost cave is the inmost like soul of her being, right? The inmost like the inmost chamber of her heart, something like that. Mm-hmm. And that's what she has been afraid to approach this whole time. Yeah. And she is finally choosing to open that door. You know, a lot of old fairy tales have the story of the one door you're not allowed to open, right? You got the keys to the whole house, but don't go into that one room. Often there's skeletons or something creepy in there. But like we talked about this in Xenosaga, in relation to the story of the children of Mary in the Grimm's fairy tales, that door is the one that has the Holy Trinity behind it, right? You literally see the light of God, and it's like, oh my gosh, like the decision to open that last door is not one to be taken lightly. But as it relates to yourself, it is the last step in the old Greek maxim, know thyself, right? You have to open that last door. If you open it and you're not ready, it could destroy you, right? And there may be things in there you don't like, right? But at the same time, if you are to become a whole person, you have to open that door. So I like that within Garnet, it's mostly an internal struggle that she's dealing with. At Zidane, it's projected, it's so outward, but for her, it's all inward. I love that. I really like that.
Yeah, her entire hero's journey is of self-identification, right? In that regard, right?
Yeah, but not in a frivolous way.
Exactly.
It's deep, it's meaningful, and she's the queen. She really has to get this figured out.
She can't be passive anymore, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. I would say for Steiner, his is another one of those internal things. It's this kind of idea of he at this point has undeniable proof, without a shadow of a doubt, that Alexandria is the aggressor, and he has been serving the wrong guys.
See, that's the one where the door has the skeletons behind it, and that's the door he doesn't want to open. Oh, man.
He just simply can't reconcile this with his belief of the crown, right?
Yeah.
I think that this is kind of one of those things where it's one thing to deconstruct an idea, to come from a background and deconstruct whatever that means, but it's another thing to rebuild something in its place. Yes. What are you going to put there instead? You've destroyed something. Awesome.
Good job.
I guess. What are you going to put there? And this is the inner conflict. This is the inmost cave, I think, for Steiner, is he's trying to figure out what's he going to put there.
Yeah.
He has his entire worldview is crushed at this point. And he just has to decide, what am I going to do here? That, I think, is his inmost cave.
I like that.
Yeah. For Vivi, I would say he just has this idea of like, well, if the black mages, if they are not real, what does that make me? So much of his entire ordeal, like his entire hero's journey, is what am I, right? Vivi is basically moving towards this moment in the story where he is going to have to confront, am I even alive the way that I thought that I was? I think that is his inmost thing, and it's just this fear. His curiosity that we love, that is endearing, has become fear. And how is he going to tackle that? Is he going to stay scared? Is this the moment where he runs away? He's approached the cave. He's at the inmost cave. What are you going to do now? I feel like that's kind of the theme for all of them. Are you backing out now?
I like this. To keep the analogy going that I've been doing, the last locked door for him is a door to nothingness. But depends on what you do when you get to that last door. You open it and you see the abyss, right? Mm-hmm. And as you gaze into it, it gazes back. That whole
sure.
But
bars, dude.
But do you run away from it? Do you shut the door and run away, right? Mm-hmm. And part of anyone will want to do that. Or do you step out into it? Do you walk into that door? And I feel like maybe at the very end of the game, there is that moment at the very, very end of the game before you meet Necron, where Zidane basically has to do that. It's a step out into the abyss. But he finds magically and mysteriously a support. There is a way that exists in the midst of the nothingness that he is walking into. There is something there. But you don't know that at first, and you have to go on faith in order to make that first move, in order to put your foot out. And like Indiana Jones, which one was that? Was that the third one, I think? Where it's like...
Yes.
Now, he cheats, though, because he like throws like rocks onto it. Come on, dude. You're supposed to just take that step, dude. Take the step. For Vivi, it's scary to do that. But that innermost cave for him is the abyss. But when he steps out into it, he finds a support. And at the very least, maybe even if you want to be more grounded in the game itself, that support is the friends he made along the way or whatever it is. Yeah. But it's not nothing. It looks like there's nothing there. But when you move out, you find that there is something. There is something there. Yeah. Oh, that's super cool. I love this.
Great.
Okay.
All right, the ordeal.
The ordeal's great because every Final Fantasy makes this such a huge part. Like Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII as well. This is the moment where people break. This is the moment where it's just like, I don't know if I can handle the pressure. It's way too much. And for Zidane, geez, man. I mean, he doesn't quite end up in a wheelchair on the beach, completely delirious. But he does completely go through a crisis that is like destroying his body. Like he can't even like walk anymore. Like he's so just broken. But his ordeal is coming to terms with himself. That he thought it was an external problem. He thought this is something Vivi has to deal with. He didn't realize that it's something that he has to deal with. And once it comes to, he's the mentor for Vivi, all of a sudden it comes for him, and he has no idea how to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah, he has all of these connections that he's built with everyone, and he kind of, like I said, he's been kind of going through this whole journey with kind of a simple, like a way too simplified mantra of just like, look, life is kind of simple. I'm just going to help people. But at this point, everything has been broken down for him.
Right.
And the only way that he can grapple with this idea that he has become this angel of death and that his entire identity is fully like just like brought into question. He rejects all of the connections that he's made. He isolates himself. And the only way that he comes out of it is by being saved by the other people who he had built connections with.
Yep.
That is his like ordeal. It is the death and resurrection all in one. That is the ordeal for Zidane.
And the reward, actually, he kind of goes through a lot of these in that one moment.
He does.
Right. The approach to the inmost cave results in the ordeal, which then results in literally. Well, actually, no, because the resurrection, there's a different scene because obviously everyone thinks Zidane is dead at the end of the game up until the very last scene, and so that actually is more relevant to that point. But he also goes through that same process here as well. He kind of has to leave behind his previous idea of who he thought he was and to accept this new reality of who he is. Right. Yet, does that mean you completely leave behind every aspect of who you were? That's what he's grappling with. What parts of who I was do I get to keep with who I am? And how do I justify it? That's the question. How do I justify taking any of that stuff with me if that isn't even really me? Like, who am I? Like, it's just a complete identity collapse is what it is. So that's his ordeal. Obviously, Vivi has something very, very similar, right? With his spiral in learning the truth for himself as well.
Yeah, this is when he really decides, or not decides, he discovers that his time is in fact limited. And he's just been asking this question. So what does that mean? What do I do about that? And I feel like he goes through this ordeal. Like, the ordeal is very inside of himself. What am I doing about this? How do I grapple with this? And he has these conversations with the other members of the Black Mage Village. And I think the outcome of his ordeal is that he just accepts it. Like you said, he looks into the abyss.
Yes.
And he accepts it.
And he accepts it. He's a black mage. He's like, that's part of me. That's what I am. He looks into the abyss. He accepts it. And also just the mortality in general, right? Being confronted with your own mortality. He didn't know what he was. I don't know that he really thought he was immortal. I don't know.
Sure.
But at least some of the black mages did. They were just like, I don't know anything about death. And then all of a sudden it just starts happening, right? That collapses your identity. I'm not what I thought I was, right? For Vivi, it may have been less about the mortality and more about just the artificial nature of his own being, which he already had some inkling of beforehand. But until you get to that point, until you go to that innermost cave, you don't really have to deal with it directly because there's always some other possible explanation, right? But the identity collapse comes when there is no other explanation. Like, this is you. This is who you are. This is what your life is, right? But he does deal with it, honestly, given his more childlike nature. He deals with it better than Zidane does.
Yes. It's interesting now that you bring that up, because it's like, what is more existential? Being a robot who knows that one day your power is going to shut off and you're no longer going to operate anymore.
Right.
Or understanding that you are a robot.
Yeah.
Knowing that you are artificial. Yeah. That, like, what's the more existential problem there? And he just accepts all of it.
He accepts it. Because what else are you going to do?
Yeah.
Like, acceptance, I don't know. It's just it's a powerful tool. You have to accept reality as it shows up. You keep fighting against it. You're just fighting against nature. You're fighting against reality. And in accepting of it, this is so good, because in the acceptance of something like that, you're establishing like solid ground in a way that it could be said that the abyss is nothingness. It's total nihilism, right? But in the acceptance of something like nothingness, you have established a fact in a world where facts shouldn't exist because everything's relative, right? But in the establishment of a fact, which is like, I am nothing, right? A lowly, it's a humility. You're humbling yourself, right? That creates a solid ground on which to build on. And it's like, you're building on nothing. Yeah, but it's not actually nothing. I think the discovery is that it isn't actually nothing. When you accept the nothingness, you get something that isn't nothing. And anyways, I think there's a fun metaphor in there, but I'll have to tease that out over a little bit, little bit more time.
That can go deep.
Yeah,
for sure. I would say for Garnet, really just her whole ordeal. I love that they kind of diegetically do this with the gameplay as well, because she is a summoner in her origins. Right. And she literally, after the destruction of Alexandria, she is now no longer tied to something that even exists anymore. What princess of what? Alexandria is gone. And also, I can't even speak anymore. I can't even use this gift that is a part of my bloodline of being a summoner. I can now no longer even use this, right? It's all just guilt. It's grief. It's silence.
That's good.
And her whole outcome of this ordeal is now she has to literally decide for herself who she is from nothing. There's no more kingdom. I'm no longer acting as a summoner right now. What am I? Who am I? How am I going to rebuild myself? And it's literally from ground zero. That's her ordeal.
That's great, because the more we dive into this, the more it seems like their ordeals have a lot in relation to each other. They're similar.
Yes.
They're not the same problem, but they're all kind of similar in a certain way, which is, how do I make something out of nothing? Then the answer to that is, of course, if you build it, they will come. Yeah. I have to do my best. What was his name? James Earl Jones impersonation.
James Earl Jones.
If you build it, they will come. And that's what she has to figure out. But it's like, make it. You have to make it. And there's stuff to make it from. Don't ask if there's nothing. I don't know why there's stuff, but there's stuff. So use it. Mm-hmm. And then for Steiner, I think we already kind of touched on his, right? But it's his identity.
It's that, the crown or the truth. Which one is it going to be, right?
Yeah.
This idea of the perfect soldier, right? The perfect knight is gone. There's no more Alexandria. What are we going to do? His key realization, I want to say, during all of this is obedience is not necessarily choosing what is right.
Necessarily. I like that because we talk about humility. We talk about acceptance of something maybe above you that's not just you, right? Yeah. But like in terms of an ideal or a goal or like like friendship or the group, the greater good, something like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't just be blind to everything else, right?
Yeah.
That it's not necessarily. It can be a virtue. It can be a virtue, but it can also be a vice. And the way that he was unhealthily using something like I want to say cooperation, but what's the word? Just being told what to do, basically, and not having to think. Right? That's a crutch. Like it's nice to not have to think until you have to think. But the fact is, like. You've got to figure this out at some point. And for Steiner, I really like it too. I love the way that Beatrix kind of helps him through his ordeal because she goes through one herself. She goes through basically the same thing, but she does it a little bit earlier because she sticks with Brahm a little longer. And so she gets to see more of the descent into madness. And she really is kind of like thrust into a place where she has to make that decision right then and there. This is who I'm going to stand with. This is where I'm going to be. Whereas for Steiner, it's a lot slower of a process. But then, of course, when they fight together, they get to know each other and all that stuff. I think it's super fun. But they help each other through the exact same ordeal.
Right. Yeah, and there's definitely a death and resurrection here as well, with him literally putting to death the idea of authority being the end-all, be-all of his life versus what he has now been reborn to be, and that is basically a knight of principle. He's a knight of principle now. Like that's just
there you go. He serves a higher power. He serves a higher authority.
Yes, exactly.
And that's so good. But it's the same authority that called Zidane and Garnett to their adventure, right? He discovered that authority, which is different. It's a different kind of authority. It's one that you feel with your soul. Okay, the reward. This one I was actually so we're moving on now to the reward part because once you go through the ordeal, the idea is you get something, right? Now there's there's several different ways of looking at this, I suppose. The reward is sometimes a thing that you get for yourself, and then but it may not necessarily be the thing that you then come back and share with other people. It usually is. I don't know if it is in this game, other than I overcame and I'm going to teach you how to overcome, something like that. That works. That's not the only reward, though, that Zidane gets. I found basically like the reward for Zidane, what Zidane kind of returns back to the world is like their being, like the spirit, the souls that belong in Gaia, right? But he also, like what he gets himself is like a way to live in the world, in a way to kind of make meaning in a place where it's difficult to come by, something like that. But what he does for everyone else, the elixir, it's a whole different part. We're going to cover it later. But the elixir is different from the reward. I just kind of want to point that out right there. And so
this is another example of the story not totally following just like the cookie cutter structure of this happens, then this happens, then this happens.
Exactly. You could say like in something like The Hobbit, the reward would be something like the Arkenstone or something, but that's not what he brings back to the Shire. Like what he brings back to the Shire is something different than, what he necessarily gets after the ordeal, at the Lonely Mountain. And so, for Zidane, what he gets is newness of life. That's what he gets. Like he gets a reason to live. He gets the recognition of friendship that he didn't know was as deep as it ended up being. Right. Yes. He didn't know that he had these kinds of friends. Oh, the friends who actually care about me. Oh, that's great. He gets things that are very personal to him, but it's something that mostly just applies to him. Whereas what he brings to the rest of the world is stuff that applies to everybody. So I just want to kind
I was gonna
separate
say,
those two.
Yeah, like for Zidane, I would say that if his ordeal was the whole like you're not alone section, I mean his reward for that is the connections, these people, these friends that he has made.
Yep, the friends he made along the way.
They are literally fighting through like his darkness. Like they are like fighting for him.
Yeah.
And they pull him out of it. And his reward is, I mean, he chooses connection over the isolation. That's his reward. He's no longer isolated. He's got the connection.
Yeah. I like that. That's perfect. And in a way, that's kind of true of all of the characters. The reward is less a thing. It's less like a sword or a stone or something like that. And it's more each other, because as we mentioned previously, the ordeal is very similar between all of them. They have to reckon with absence, the absence of what made their life meaningful previously. They have to reckon with that absence, and that's difficult to do. But they all find solace in essentially each other, and in the goodness of life and being and all of that stuff. They rediscover what it means to be a friend. They like an episode of My Little Pony or something like that. But it's deeper.
I will say,
trust me, this time it's deeper.
Yeah, friendship is magic.
Friendship is magic.
So I would say for Garnet, her reward is that moment of cutting off her hair. That's the reward for her.
The reward. That's her newness of life. That's good.
Yes,
I like it.
Exactly. She's living a life not because she has to, but because she wants to. She chooses now what she is, right? I'm choosing what I'm going to do from here on out. Like that, obviously, the symbolism of the cutting off the hair, especially in Japanese media, equaling like rebirth. That's literally like goodbye to the old me, hello to the new me.
That's exactly correct.
That's her reward.
I remember too, though, before Garnet did that, you had Zidane basically giving her an analogy, basically tells her like a story about like a stone that didn't understand its own worth. It's funny, just because I brought up previously, the reward doesn't have to be a stone or a diamond or wwhatever. But the story told about Garnet is, well, Garnet, of course, is like a precious stone of sorts. The story that Zidane tells is of that. Like, you are the reward. You just need to be it. Like, you just need to go take it, go have it. You can have it. It's at your fingertips. It's right there. Just go do it. Go claim that renewal, that newness of life. Go become a polished stone. Realize what you already are. And in realizing something, it can still be very rewarding. In fact, I think it was C.S. Lewis or maybe Tolkien, I can't remember which one, said something along the lines of, like, nothing is more pleasing than to rediscover something you thought was lost. That's like, sometimes that's the most powerful feeling that you can have, right? Like, you rediscover, and this can be, it can be a thing, like a physical, like the remote in your couch or whatever. Getting it again after it was lost is way more valuable than, do people even use remotes anymore? I don't know. Probably.
Me and my wife do. So.
You guys still do okay. Good for you.
Yeah.
But rediscovering like something like life, or like suddenly you're confronted with the abyss and you realize that you may have like a meaningless existence. Like, oh my gosh! But then to recapture that meaning, it's way more precious when you recapture something that you had once lost. Than you realized it was before you had lost it. So the reward can even be something just like that.
Yeah. I was trying to find the exact person who said the quote there, but I couldn't find it. But yes, I agree.
I'll put an interjection there. I'll find it.
Yeah. And then obviously, just like with Steiner, what we were talking about earlier, basically his entire reward is just that confidence that he has in just knowing that a true knight, right, is going to serve what is right and not just whoever is in power. That's his reward after all of that.
Very nice.
And then I guess for Vivi, he kind of comes out with this new belief that the limited life that he has, it actually matters whether or not it lasts forever. There you go. It's the acceptance, but he truly, like, he loves it. Like, he holds on to it now, and it's his purpose now is to live and die and hold his life dear.
There you go. And that is as acceptance as it gets, right? Because that is it. Like, as far as that is life. It was Tolkien, by the way. He said the recovered thing is more precious than the thing that was never lost. That's what Tolkien said.
Nice.
All right, dude.
Said very eloquently. I love it.
As is his wont.
Yeah.
That is so Tolkien of him. All right. So then we come here to the road back. And as you mentioned, and obviously video games play this like ridiculous to a ridiculous degree. You're constantly, the road back is constantly happening, right? You're always like, maybe not in a book or in a movie, but in a video game, it's like, dude, we go back whenever we want. Like, we're constantly going back to Limblum or Alexandria or Trino or any of these places. It's a JRPG. It's an open world map. Like, you can go wherever you want. But the story at this point, after you get the reward, there is a specific way back. And for the game here, it's basically leaving Terra and coming back to Gaia, right? Now, that's not the end, of course. In a lot of these stories, and Vogler gives tons of examples, coming back isn't like the end. Coming back can sometimes result in a new conflict of its own, where these new skills have to be tested, and before you then gain entry back into the normal world, the initial world that you first left. But for this one, for Zidane at least, it is leaving Gaia, coming back to the Ifa tree, and then coming back to the world.
Well, and what I was going to say to kind of to make the road back kind of look closer to what you were just describing of like, hey, maybe this actually just means like a full-on new challenge has arrived here. I think this new identity that he has, and that is the identity of, look, my identity is chosen. I decide who I am. Now he actually faces the real challenge, and that is that he has to stand against Kuja, who rejects that idea. Like he has kind of gone through this whole rebirth like cycle, right? But now there's still another adversary in front of him. And of course, like in that, like the crazy scene with all of like the trees and everything, and like Kuja's like down there on the ground.
Oh, I love that. I love that scene. It's so fun.
Yeah. I think just this, I don't know, he's carrying really the story forward now that he has this reward. We still got to move forward. Like there's still stuff to be done. He's not just only supporting others, but he's like, now he's the story support. We got to keep on moving forward, right? But I like what you said a lot.
That's really good. And another fun part, because we mentioned that the road back isn't without its own trials. That is basically the trial for Zidane is, do you help Kuja? Right? He's there. He needs help. You just gained all this wisdom. You just learned all of this, like, compassionate ways to deal with the world and how to try and help people. And you finally have this new power and this new knowledge and all this stuff that can help people. And the first thing that happens is your arch nemesis is like dying, but you really think he's kind of good inside, and he easily could have been like you, and you could have been like him. And so he immediately has to put everything that he's gone through to the test, right? And is like, well, everything will pass away. Like, everything is impermanent, right? What matters is, as Gandalf said, what matters is what you do with the time that is given to you, right? And if you use that time to help people, good job. If you didn't, like, then what did you learn, right? So he kind of, you can kind of see him rolling his eyes too, like, I have to help this guy, don't I? Like, my conscience is going to, I have to try at least. And so, boom, he does that. And of course, when he does that, we don't know what his ultimate fate is. And that leads right into the next one here. But at the very least, that marks Zidane's road back. Vivi, go ahead, keep going.
Vivi. Well, okay. Actually, first what I was going to mention was Garnet.
Okay.
Because Garnet, dude, her road back is so interesting to me because it's which I find actually very, very personable. Like I hold Garnet's road back as a tighter, I don't know, like I like this one. It resonates with me. Yeah. Because her entire thing is, what is my identity? Yeah. But then towards the end, she doesn't necessarily just decide what her identity is, but she's like, what do I then do with that identity?
That's like another question. Yeah.
That's another question, because
that's the reason for the question, right? It's one thing to say, I am Garnet. That's my identity. It's like, okay,
exactly.
But what does that mean?
Or you can say, I am the princess. Or you can say, I am a summoner. It's like, what does that mean?
Yeah,
I can sit here right now and tell you, I am a father. And without any action, all that means is I impregnated somebody and I have an offspring out there.
Oh, you pessimist.
But to actually father someone.
Right. There's a verb.
That is action. That is, she has decided that her identity isn't just a title. It is something that is embodied in action.
Ooh,
so
very
that is
good.
something,
I love it.
That is something that I really love. I love her story. I love her road back. She decides that she is going to embody this title that she has as the true queen, and she's going to not be passive anymore. Her whole thing was, I'm a passive person, and then she learns I can't be passive anymore. And now she knows her identity. Cool. I'm a queen. Now I have to act as a queen and not just have this title.
There you go. As an active person, she learns to become an active person. And by the looks of it, she did a pretty good job rebuilding the kingdom. I mean, you only see that last FMV at the end, but the kingdom gets more or less rebuilt, and the people seem to like her.
Yeah.
So it's, as markers of a good queen, she's doing pretty good, at least from what we can tell. She accepts the mantle, and she starts to do it, right? But at the same time, she's missing the guy that disappeared.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about Vivi real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. Tell me his road back, because basically he becomes the mentor, right? But I think that's his resurrection. That's the next part where he's reborn. Basically, his road back is his road back to his people, right? That is who he identifies with the most. It's who he wants to be with the most. It's who he wants to help the most. And so the road back there is kind of full of him, just kind of like, I don't know what I'm going to do when I get there, but
I think
I know where I want to go.
Similar. I think it's a little similar to Garnet's. Like it's one thing to accept mortality. Living this meaningful life in spite of mortality is another thing. And I think that's, especially once we start seeing the end credits and whatever you want to call that, his children, whatever that is, like
his little letter he writes,
he lives a life, and he is no longer just following other people. He's doing his own thing. He has an identity, and he is active in it.
That it's almost the ultimate statement of confronting the nihilist question and coming out on the other side of saying that meaning is good when you have like lots of kids. Right?
Sure. Yeah.
It's almost like you wouldn't do that if you didn't think life was worth living. You wouldn't make more of it. At least not if you're trying to be, to act on morality in the way that you understand it. But for Vivi, it's like, he saw the abyss. Not only did he confront it and decide that his life was meaningful, he decided that it would be meaningful for even other people and to continue life in a big way. That's a bigger statement than anything he wrote or than anything that he could say, is that like, despite it all, life is worth it, and it's so worth it that I'm going to make more people to share it because of how valuable it is. That's so cool. I think that's so cool. And he really does have something valuable, to share with the people and with all of us, with the game players too. Yeah. I love it.
I think Steiner's road back is just simply the fact that he's now living his new code.
That's right.
This idea of the chosen loyalty. I'm going to choose who I'm going to be loyal to because I've decided it, not just because somebody told me to do that. That idea has to hold water under real stakes. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's his whole idea now. I think his entire road back is just the idea of him living as the knight that he initially thought that he was, but now it's a completely different thing than it's totally different. He thought he was that. Yeah.
Do you remember that ending FMV where Beatrix and Steiner kind of like cross their swords over the entrance of the doorway, and they're like, "You're not allowed in," but then they kind of smile and move their swords away.
You go through. Yeah.
I almost feel like that's like, it's just a jest mostly, but I think that almost could be it as well, where it's like, look, we're not supposed to let people through here. Not just anyone can go through here.
Yes.
But we know you, and we're not just adhering to the letter of the law. We are going to adhere to the spirit of the law, which we learned about on our journey, and you're totally allowed in. Like, why would we not let you in? But the old Steiner really would not have let him in, because it's like, you're not on the list. Your name's not on the list, buddy. Like, I know you. I know everyone knows you. I know that you should be allowed in, but I'm not letting you in because my job is to keep people's names on the list in and not on the list out. And instead it's just like, nah, you can totally go in. It's a brief moment, but I do feel like it illustrates to some extent this exact point that we're talking about, that they have really kind of, they have a different authority now. It's not just by the book anymore.
Yes. Yeah. All right. Do we want to get into the what is this?
The Resurrection.
Resurrection. Yeah.
And of course,
for
Zidane, it's it's pretty straightforward. It is the Resurrection.
It's obvious. However, I will also say that he goes back for Kuja. This could also be wrapped up into the Resurrection. After everything that Kuja did, nearly losing his life to despair after finally finding purpose, he chooses to risk it all for someone who doesn't deserve it.
Not even close.
He decides
that's like the most Christian thing that I've ever heard, actually.
Yeah, he literally puts his life on the line for someone who so clearly does not deserve to have his life saved, but he does it anyways.
That's really deep. I actually think that's fascinating. And that's clearly what's going on, but sometimes you can word things in such a way that's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Wow, that's actually really cool. And
yeah, he didn't just like recover over this ordeal. He became something greater. He literally like resurrected and is deciding to do this thing, and that is save those who don't even deserve it.
And that is his new being. This is new Zidane. Old Zidane said, "Not my problem." New Zidane says, "Maybe not my problem. It doesn't have to be my problem, but I'm going to take responsibility for it anyways." Yeah. Right? Because I just learned that he's gladly accepting tons of new responsibility. That's a big deal. That's very different.
Yeah.
That's a very different Zidane we see at the end. I love it. And that cutscene's so good too. It's just a fun one.
Love it.
Okay, and then the resurrection for Vivi is, I believe, his role as the mentor for the Black Mage Village.
Yeah. Yeah, he's gone, but his presence is still there.
Absolutely. You know? Yeah, he's reborn in his descendants. Actually, I like that. That's a good one. And in that letter he writes, he's immortalized his thoughts and ideas in words that are being read, even after his death.
Oh, man, especially just this idea that he had all this fear about the nothingness that was his potential. Yeah. But we see that there is so much more Vivi to be lived on in the world, even after his death. Yeah, like, he's not dead. Right. He's still there. Like, no, he had nothing to fear because he's not really dead.
That's good.
Like,
that's fun.
All of it, he still lives on, right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's fun. I really like that. Okay, and then for Steiner, of course, we kind of already brought it up, but, that cutscene at the end, he's just a new guy. He's a totally new guy from what he was.
Unshakable conviction. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but still the same old Steiner. I just love it. They've all kind of leveled up, but they've retained that unique individuality that made them, likable to begin with. Mm-hmm. And then,
I would say even for Garnet, if Zidane is dead, she will still stand without him.
You know what? That's actually a good point. I love it.
She doesn't necessarily need him, but she will continue on without him.
And so that's part of her rebirth. She had kind of identified with him pretty heavily towards the end of the game.
Yes.
But
she's her own person.
But she becomes her own person, not dependent on anybody. She's the queen.
Yeah.
And I guess Beatrix is still around, but she doesn't have the people around her telling her what to do. Like, she has become independent. She's done it. That's actually really good. That might be an important aspect of Zidane being gone for a while. Garnet wanted him there, but it's like, look, there are things that you have to learn on your own. But that doesn't mean you go it alone your whole life. But there are certain things you do have to learn on your own. And she needed time and space to learn those things.
Exactly. We need to be able to ask the question of, are you still yourself if he's not even here? And she proves that her answer is yes.
Yes, she is a unique individual. And what does she get as reward for that? He comes back, and now they both, as unique individuals, separate from each other, can now come together in a way better manner than it would have been possible before.
Yes.
When they were either too reliant or they just hadn't gone through this whole thing. Like, I don't know, the multiplication adds to a higher number this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that leads great into returning with the elixir here.
Yeah, so I mentioned a little bit before, the reward that Zidane gets is fairly internal and unique to him, and each character kind of undergoes it themselves. But the elixir is supposed to be something bigger than that. It's the cosmic scale. It's we're thinking macro here, not micro. And so I think the elixir that Zidane brings is basically he returns the spirit loop.
Oh, you mean the life stream?
The life stream. That's the word. I like it. We'll just call it the life stream. He essentially restores the full functioning of the life stream, which is he gives the people their soul back, and not each individual person, connection. But the collective, the planet, the people. He gives them their soul back. He restores everything back to kind of, how it was. And so that's part of the elixir, right? Here's a potion that will help the planet, right? To heal the planet.
Yes.
Then the Aoife tree stops like sucking in souls. But also his elixir too that he brings is like a future for manufactured people. Because remember, he brings the, I can't remember what they're called, but his people, the monkey people, he brings that woman along with him and some of those people as well. And he's like, hey, live in the Black Mage Village. But he gives a future to even these people who otherwise would have been destroyed. Of course, there's like a whole new age of peace, and Zidane himself comes back as that mentor figure for everybody and anybody who needs help existing in this new world of difference and whatnot. Maybe some people had a lot of meaning in battling the mist, and now the mist is gone. What are we going to do now? It's like, hey, look, man, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. And Zidane is living proof of that. So that is the difference between the reward and the elixir. The elixir is for tons of people, whereas the reward is just usually more useful just for that one hero at that moment. But the elixir, of course, for Vivi is very similar in that regard, although he's more focused on his people, which is fair, totally, normal thing to do. And for Steiner, gosh, I mean, he's passing his stuff on. Most of this is just a model that they become mentors and models for how to live to their people. The Knights of Pluto, I would hope, are better than they were before.
He becomes an entirely new standard. This is the new model of knighthood for this kingdom.
That's right, yeah. And it would be way better. And then, of course, for Garnet, it is once again she becomes the queen for her people. She's
a leader.
The kin, like the leader that they need. Like she's not a politician, It's not like she just ran for office and got a lot of votes. And it's like, no, she was born into this role, but in becoming the thing she was born to be, it provides the comfort to the people. That's what a good king does. A good king or queen is somebody who is mindful of the people. And of course, a lot of kings, I don't know most, but many kings don't live up to that. But when they do, there's almost no better kind of government when you have a good king. It's just, how do you guarantee you get a good king? But for Garnet, it's like she was a good queen, and that helps everybody. The whole land is blessed.
I was just going to add on to all of that, which is basically just repeating what you said. Like, she is now no longer, she's not just the queen of Alexandria and is just sitting as queen, but she's active. And that means that she's not just leading Alexandria, but she understands Alexandria. And I think the Alexandrians, they see that as well. They get that from her. She's an active queen who loves us, right?
Yep.
That's good.
Dope, dude. Wow. And often this is called the boon, by the way. You return with the boon or the elixir or whatever it is. You return with the thing that can help, help your people who you left regain their courage. And that happens in tons of stories. But FF9, I was shocked at how deep and how well a lot of these archetypes are followed throughout this whole game and each of the characters. And, we can kind of have our different opinions about certain aspects, but for the most part, it all fits really well. And it's beautiful. Like the way it all comes together, it would sound like, we've been telling this same story for 10,000 years. At some point, humanity gets sick of it. No, I don't know why, but no, people never get sick of hearing this story over and over, even in the story, to hear this story again in micro doses for all the characters in it going through the same story themselves. And it all kind of like balloons out into basically what we have here, which is a story that is ever relevant. It's ever present. It's always relevant. There's like something eternal about it. I feel like we discovered something eternal when we discovered this story. Like something that's the shape mythical of the universe. And judge ye what you think I mean when I say that, but there's something really and that's kind of cool about it.
That was what I was saying towards the very beginning of this podcast, just in the way that my mind has now been shaped or conditioned or altered to now like view stories from this sort of lens, I literally find something so much more beautiful in those stories than I ever would have beforehand. A movie like Moana might be something that I like thought was annoying and stupid or whatever, but then I see how clear the death and resurrection is at the end of that story, and it actually brings a tear to my eye or something like that. You know, like something like this, Final Fantasy IX. Yeah, sure, loved that game when I was younger, but now I actually cry whenever like something major happens in its story because I see it. It's just this. There's something so mysterious about the way that this is kind of just a retelling of what we could just call the greatest story ever told.
Sure,
because it's
absolutely.
the same story that we've all been saying.
Yes.
The same story from the beginning of time till now and infinity in the future. Right?
And it never gets old.
Great.
And if you think of mimetic selection as akin to genetic selection in terms of just like evolution and natural selection, this story was selected out of all other stories to be kind of like the story of stories. And it doesn't, but that being said, you could easily, just because you know all these points doesn't mean you have a good story. You still have to execute it right. Yeah. And Sakaguchi and the team behind FF9, they executed that story to a level that, like you said, just brings a tear to your eye. It is so well done, and it is so relatable, and it feels so real, even though these are like weird claymation, like cartoon characters. It feels so, it touches with reality. It really does touch reality. And I think that's why it's so powerful.
Yeah, sometimes the best way to tell a story like this is to be so familiar with good storytelling in this way that you are able to masterfully subvert a lot of those things, which is why we kept on saying over this podcast, it's not this one-size-fits-all formula to the way that it all works. Sometimes one character's ordeal is at the very... the like final cutscene of the game, or
that's true.
While meanwhile somebody else's ordeal is like them cutting their hair off halfway through the game, something like that, right? Or their the thing that they learned, right? It's very
it's
it can
weird.
Be shaped to however you do it, and I think he does it great.
I always wondered about this, but Joseph Campbell puts the belly of the whale in like the Act 1. He puts it in his first chapter, kind of about the hero's journey out of 3. And it's like, that is so interesting. I've always wondered that ever since I first read it. Why did he put it there? Because most movies don't, or books or games. The belly of the whale isn't usually something that happens in the first third, right? It's usually something that happens a little bit later, but it easily can be. And even in like where that whole saying comes from, the belly of the beast, the belly of the whale, that's referring to Jonah. And he gets swallowed by the whale in like chapter 2. And so like the rest of that story, the belly of the whale was actually kind of the first half of the story of Jonah. And then what happens later on is the continuation of that story. And so, but it's so funny. It can come at any point. It can come at any point, and it will be at a different point for each character.
Yeah, it's interesting because we'll try to wrap this up soon. I just immediately think to something like, I don't know if you've seen the newest Godzilla movie, Godzilla -1.
Yes, I love that movie, dude. I loved it.
Yeah, it is a World War II story.
Yeah.
Where they literally, you could say they start the story off in the belly of the whale. What are we going to do? And then if things couldn't get any worse, that's whenever Godzilla comes, right? It's like sometimes you can put the belly of, that's why they call it -1, because if you're already at ground zero, like we got to start from scratch, boom, now here comes Godzilla. We're down in -1, right? We're below 0. Like sometimes that is how you properly structure a story, is you put the character in the belly of the whale from scene 1.
Early on.
It can be however you want to do it, and I think Hironobu Sakaguchi freaking nailed it with Final Fantasy IX.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. By the way, Godzilla -0 comes out. I think it's called -0. It comes out this year.
Hashtag not sponsored. Hashtag not sponsored.
Not sponsored. No, I'm going to see it. It's going to have a limited release here in the States. I'm totally going to watch it wherever it is. I'll drive. For sure. I'll drive 100 miles if I have to. Anyways, thanks for watching, everybody, and thanks for coming on. I really appreciate this. This was a fun one. This is actually one of the funner podcasts we've done in a while. I love doing the slow grind the way that we do it, going through games, but sometimes just laying it all out in one episode. I don't know, this ended up being twice as long as we thought it would be, but there's something really fun about just going through it all at once and seeing all the magic, kind of just compressing it into one episode here. Hopefully everybody else here liked it. Don't forget, Gavin's channel is called Overleveled Games or Overleveled Gaming?
Games.
over-leveled games. So give him a look-see. And thanks for watching. Mike should be back in the next week or two. Stay tuned to our Discord to figure out when exactly that happens. I don't even know myself, but he's coming, and we'll have more stuff for you two coming up. So thank you very much. Have a good day.